Okay, so I do want to provide you an update on the deflazacort development and registration program. I'll start with what's been submitted to the FDA, so that the NDA went in about a little over 2 weeks ago. So we started the program back in 2013. We did license, at the time, what was the largest study ever conducted in Duchenne patients. It was a program that was started by a large pharmaceutical company but was abandoned. And so the investigators of the study completed the program, and so we licensed the data from them. We met with the FDA, and the FDA asked us to get a second study to complement that, and we did that. They also asked for a full preclinical program, and so we conducted non-toxicology studies. And they also asked for a full clinical pharmacology and safety program. And so we conducted, over the course of the last 3 years, 7 different studies to characterize the drug's effect in order to submit an NDA. And so those studies are shown on this schematic as well. So I'm going to talk about a number of the studies on this and share some of the findings, which I think you'll find interesting today. So a little bit about the NDAs that went in 2 weeks ago. There's 2 NDAs. The first NDA is for the tablet formulations, so 4 different tablet strengths. There's a 6, an 18, a 30, and a 36 milligram immediate release oral tablet. And the second NDA is for an oral suspension product. Those NDAs were submitted on June 9th, and the FDA typically then has 2 months in order to make a filing decision, whether or not all the information that we've agreed to with the agency is present, and then at that time they'll make a decision as to whether that qualifies for priority review, which is a more rapid review, 6 months, or a standard review. We expect the priority review, given the unmet need and the population, which will give us a 6-month review, so we expect a PDUFA date in February, early February of 2017. We do not expect an advisory committee review with FDA. I think the efficacy and safety profile of steroids is well characterized, but if there is one, it will probably be in December of this year. In the meantime, we agreed with FDA that while we were putting the NDA together and while the FDA was reviewing the dossier, we would have an expanded access program which provides the deflazacort to patients in the U.S. with DMD free of charge. And I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of the presentation. I'll talk a little bit about the pivotal efficacy study. Last year I presented data on the primary endpoint. I have some secondary endpoint data now, and I have some post-hoc data that we found interesting, and it will generate in some of our newer studies that will be starting later this year. So just very briefly, the study design again. The first, it was a 2-component study. It was done in 196 patients that were both ambulatory and non-ambulatory. The first 12 weeks was a placebo-controlled portion, looking at 2 doses of the deflazacort, 1 dose of prednisone, and then the placebo arm. And then after 12 weeks, they took the placebo-played patients, re-randomized them into one of those steroid doses, and then for 40 weeks, 12 to 52, they compared the 2 doses of the deflazacort to prednisone. As you would expect, the primary endpoint was a measure of muscle strength. So at week 12, all 3 steroid doses, both doses of the deflazacort and prednisone, improved the muscle strength, while the placebo patients declined, and so all 3 steroid doses beat placebo-treated patients. The second part of the study, looking at weeks 12 to 52, both doses of deflazacort, those patients continued to improve in muscle strength, while the prednisone patients, about week 36, they started to decline. And the difference between the lower dose of deflazacort and prednisone, that was actually statistically significant. The deflazacort dose beating the prednisone dose. What does that mean in terms of clinical significance? So this is data we did not present last year. These are the timed motor function tests. So when we looked at week 12 versus placebo, the time from supine to standing position, the time to climb 4 stairs, and the time to run and walk 30 feet. Those were all improved versus placebo when we measured those. That one huge bar that was an outlier, that looks a lot different. The effect looks a lot greater than it is because of one patient was an outlier. But you can see the all 3 steroids versus placebo, the time to do those things decreased, while for placebo-treated patients over the 12-week period, it took them longer to do these time functional tests. The second part of the study, as you remember, was the deflazacort versus prednisone. If we looked at the results were similar for most measures except the time to climb 4 stairs. The deflazacort-treated patients actually did better than the prednisone-treated patients. Those results are statistically significant. We also looked at the non-ambulatory patients because of the endpoint used muscle strength. Actually, 45 of the 196 patients in this study were non-ambulatory, so we have a lot of good data, I think, in this patient population. So we did see in muscle strength, when we looked at the post-hoc analyses, we did see significant findings in week 12, but it was the higher dose of deflazacort now where we saw a difference in this patient population, even though the numbers were a lot smaller. So you typically lose the ability to detect differences when your sample size is smaller, but we were able to see for the higher dose of deflazacort a high statistic difference versus placebo at week 12. When we looked at from baseline to 52, so from week 0 to 52 versus prednisone, again, the higher dose of deflazacort was statistically significantly better than prednisone in the second arm of the study. Within the pulmonary function data, when we looked at the non-ambulatory boys, the data was highly variable. Some measures were statistically significant at week 12. We did not see any statistically significant differences at week 52. But if we just looked at working with the pulmonologists at the percentage of patients that improved on some of these pulmonary function tests, we did see a higher proportion of patients improving on deflazacort, both at week 12 and at week 52, compared to the placebo patients at week 12 and prednisone at week 12, and then also at week 52, where the deflazacort patients improved better than the prednisone patients at week 52. So based on the findings of this study, we intend later this year to do a more formal pulmonary function study and cardiac function study in the non-ambulatory patient population. Looking at the side effect profile, as you can imagine, side effects were relatively frequent in the glucocorticoid-treated patients. You can see, looking at the deflazacort doses, a dose-related effect, where the higher dose of deflazacort-treated patients typically had more side effects than the lower dose. You can also see the prednisone-treated patients, for most side effects here, had a higher incidence of adverse effects versus the deflazacort groups. The one exception being cataract formation. With respect to the published literature, we typically always see a higher rate of cataract formation for deflazacort, and we saw that in this study as well. Looking at weight gain, it's always been reported that deflazacort has a benefit with respect to weight gain. We did see that in this study as well, looking at deflazacort versus prednisone. These results are highly statistically significant. This shows the weight gain between the baseline and the initiation of the study in week 52, showing that the prednisone patients gain more weight. What this means with respect to dropouts in the study, the lower bar here, we do see with the deflazacort doses, again, the dose-response relationship. If you're on a higher dose of deflazacort, you do gain more weight, and you typically drop out of the study at a higher percentage. And then if you're on prednisone, that relationship holds, you gain more weight and you're more likely to drop out of the study as well. So in addition to the clinical trial program, we ran the second study, which I won't present, but it did show that loss of ambulation data for deflazacort. It was a placebo-controlled study. It did show that on average patients walk about 3 years longer if you're on deflazacort versus the placebo group. But what we found interesting is that also that if you're on deflazacort, some of the published data coming out now, you do walk longer than if you're on prednisone. And the first graph came from the Synergy data that was published in September of 2015. And also we see the same data presented from this Duchenne Connect registry. Our colleagues at Eli Lilly gave us permission to present this data. They presented it first at the MDA conference in March and yesterday at the PPMD seminar on learning from the placebo arms of the trial. Everyone always asks. We had muscle strength data in our pivotal, but what happens when you look at 6-minute walk data? So this is data from Eli Lilly's program in Duchenne for the Cialis study, which is now the largest study ever conducted in this patient population. Again, looking at the placebo arm, they had an even split, 50 patients on deflazacort, 50 patients on prednisone or prednisolone, and this is the data that they showed showing a benefit for deflazacort over the prednisone arm with respect to 6-minute walk outcomes. So a little bit about when we met with FDA, we had the pre-NDA meeting. The drug that was used in the efficacy studies we licensed was the Sanofi drug Calport. That's the brand name drug in Europe. So the question from FDA is how you bioequivalent to the drug that's used in Europe. So we did a bioavailability study. This shows the results. Very nice fit. So the drug that we have that's going to be manufactured in North Carolina produces the same blood levels with respect to the rate and extent of exposure of the active metabolite. So a very nice superimposable fit with respect to the blood levels produced by our drug versus the drug that's available in Europe. I also want to share some results of a drug-drug interaction study we did. This was a drug interaction study done with moderate and strong inhibitors of CYP3A4. So we did expect an interaction. I don't think we expected the extent of the interaction we saw. So with this just shows you, the red line shows you the blood levels with deflazacort alone. And if you administer deflazacort with clarithromycin, which is a strong inhibitor of CYP3A4, that's the blood levels of deflazacort you're going to see. So you're going to see a lot higher blood level. So what that means, if your child is on an inhibitor of CYP3A4, you really have to reduce your dose of deflazacort by about 2/3. So the labeling, that would be, if the drug is approved by FDA, it will have language in the labeling. But I just listed here what some of those drugs might be. If you have any questions, you can call up our medical affairs and they can help you out on some of this until the drug's approved. But these are the drugs you need to be concerned about. If your child is taking deflazacort now, you can talk to your physician and you might want to consider a dosage reduction. And we hope to get this information published in the very near future. Okay, so going forward, what are we working on right now? What we want to do is optimize and simplify the deflazacort dosage regimen. We do have dose exposure and response modeling and some clinical trial simulations that suggest probably the milligram per kilogram dosing regimens are likely not necessary, so our new trials will look at more simplified regimens. We do want to assess the potential benefits of deflazacort in young children with DMD, building on the work that Ann Connolly has started with prednisone. And as I mentioned earlier, based on the post-hoc data we have from the North American trial, we want to assess the potential benefits of deflazacort on pulmonary function in the non-ambulatory patient population. So there's 2 studies we're in the process right now of vetting. Would be First one is a randomized double-blind study looking at 3 doses of the deflazacort, again, more simple doses, 6 milligrams a day, 12 milligrams a day, and 42 milligram high-dose weekend, so 2 doses on Saturday and Sunday, and then 5 doses off deflazacort versus placebo. The primary efficacy assessment would be at 26 weeks, and then we would treat for another 26 weeks, and then likely follow those patients up for a longer term. We would have a variety of outcome measures to assess those patients to determine if an earlier intervention with steroids would be beneficial in this patient population. So we're in the process right now. We talked to a lot of neuromuscular docs. I think we need to do some more discussion with cardiac docs, pulmonary docs, and the advocacy community on this study. The second study would be a pulmonary function study, and we want to also assess cardiac function in some of the older boys. This would be a long-term study assessing 2 doses of deflazacort and a placebo dose in about 60 patients to determine more accurately if continuing steroids post-loss of ambulation is beneficial, to what extent that's beneficial, and what dose should be used. Our data suggests perhaps maybe not capping the dose is the right thing to do. Maybe you should look at a higher dose, but this study will sort of get at what's the appropriate dosing regimen. A little bit about the EAP to conclude. The expanded access program, although it's done under a protocol and it's done under an IND, it's done that way because this is an investigational drug. So it's really not a research study, it's an access program. The enrollment since December is really picking up. We're now, as of Friday, we're about 151 patients. I think as word is spreading through social media, how easy it is, this program is. You can see we're enrolling about 15 patients a week now. These are all the sites. We'll have this at the Marathon booth. You can check if your city and state has an active site. In the interest of time, I'll flip through this really quick. But we hope to have about 40 sites, 45 sites open within the next couple of weeks. We have about 27 sites open now, and we'll have about 15 more over the next month. It's very easy to participate. You can go to www.accessdmd.com to see if your physician is listed. If your physician is listed, you can talk to your doctor about if you're eligible to participate. If you are, all you have to do is sign an informed consent. There really is no required visits. We kind of set it up to be normal medical practice. If your doctor is not listed, you can talk to him about their ability to participate. It does take several months to get a site up though, because it does have to go through an institutional review board approval. So it is a lengthy program if he's not already enrolled. If your doctor is not there, you can look and see if there's another physician close to you and that may be willing to take your job. So some frequently asked questions. How quickly can you get a drug? It can be as quick as 24 hours. You just have to be there, and the specialty pharmacy will make an arrangement. You do need to sign for the shipment. What visits are required? There are no visits. Really, it's standard of care. And the other question we get frequently, can you still participate in other clinical trials if you're in the expanded access program? And you may still be eligible, or you need to talk to your doctor for information. It depends how the other pharmaceutical companies have set up their programs. Okay, my last slide, I do want to acknowledge again the investigators of the pivotal study that when the Big Pharma program walked away from that program, we have all that data because they took the extraordinary efforts to complete that program, so they really deserve a lot of the credit. And I also want to recognize my colleagues from Marathon. We have a really small R&D group, but I have 8 of my 17 colleagues here. And I have someone from clinical, regulatory research, medical, and a lot of my MSLs here. And so if you have any questions about the studies, the regulatory process, the FDA process, seek us out. We're here because we want to interact with you. And we'd be more than happy to talk to you about any of our work today. So thank you very much.